So I've been thinking, and this would never happen, of course, but what would happen if I was the head of Xbox? Or at the very least, what if I had the ear of the head of Xbox? So what if Phil Spencer was listening to what I was saying? What changes would I heavily push to be implemented that I think would help the brand? And so I've got a list here, the top 5 things, and some of these changes are actually going to happen and are coming, and so I'll highlight some of those, and I think that's very good that it's coming. Also, some of them may not ever happen, but I still think if Phil were to listen and to implement these, it would be very beneficial to everybody. So, number 1, aggressive marketing towards Sony. You know, I think it's great that Phil and company give props and congratulations to Sony every time they launch a new game. They're being adults, you know, and they're obviously going to be cordial with these people who are in the same industry as them. But sometimes I get the feeling like they want to sit down and sing Kumbaya together, buy each other BFF bracelets while holding each other and taking selfies. You know, I get that you're in the same industry and you work together at times. That's cool, but it's also a business and they are competition, and you can have a little fun and be aggressive without turning into Antifa. Because Sony has certainly been aggressive with Microsoft. They have not held their punches. And good for Sony. Like, that's one of the things that I give them props for. Some of the best mic drop moments have come from Sony. You know, the whole sharing games trailer was absolutely genius. It was funny, it was absolutely brutal, and it cut deep. I still don't think Microsoft has fully recovered from that short little trailer that they probably just thought up of on a whim and decided to film, and they went for it. You know, they went for the jugular, and it worked. You go back even further, Kevin Butler had famous trailers where they went right after Kinect, making fun of the motion controls while pushing their Move controllers. And you can sit back and you can say, well, the Move controller sucked too, but it was that sort of aggressive marketing that made Sony feel like they were the cool company, you know? So even though their product might have sucked too, it was still aggressive marketing, and it worked. Microsoft needs to take a page from Sony and hit them in every area they can, because there are obviously some shortcomings when it comes to Xbox, things that we have talked plenty before here in the last few weeks, but there are still some advantages that they have over PlayStation that they need to be highlighting. They need to look at Sony and say, you know what, these people say they're for the players, yet they still don't allow EA access. They're still denying crossplay. There's still no Blu-ray player. There's still no changing gamer tags. There's still no backwards compatibility. You need to be shoving this in people's faces, because a lot of people still don't know some of this. And Microsoft has done it before. You go look at some of their service commercials in the past when it came to Apple. They didn't leave anything on the table. They went directly after Apple and their shortcomings. And Microsoft needs to do the same thing and get aggressive with Sony. Which aggressive marketing is sort of part of number 2, and that is show the beast. Microsoft claims to have the most powerful console. They say games will look and play better on the Xbox One X. Then it's simple, prove it. And I think that is starting to happen whenever you're seeing some of these outlets beginning to get some games that they can actually do comparisons of. They're putting out these pictures that are obviously noteworthy. Like, you look at this and you can see a difference. But especially with the X, this is something people are gonna have to see. And in order for them to see it correctly, that's going to take an investment from Microsoft. Most people still go buy big high-priced TVs in store. They go to Walmart, they go to Best Buy, they go to these other major retailers. And so what I would do is, and I believe part of this is coming down the road because Microsoft has mentioned that there's going to be TV bundles with Xbox. So I would team up with companies making nice 4K TVs with HDR, and I would make sure every major retailer had my console playing games on a 40-plus inch TV with HDR on, showing side-by-side comparisons of the same games running on PS4 Pro versus X. just like Digital Foundry. Show those photos, show clear distinctions in person to people who can actually see it on a 4K screen. Show the difference with HDR on and HDR off, because this, again, is a feature that people can't be told about. You gotta see it. And then I would have those same TV manufacturers, whenever you go into the TV department, I would have them playing Xbox One X video footage on their screens. And I'd also have speakers hooked up, showing the difference in Dolby Atmos. You know, show off these features and show them off to the people who are still going to the brick and mortar stores to buy TVs, to buy consoles. And Microsoft could do it. And that's exactly what Apple does for its products. You go, and if you go into a store that sells Apple products, everything is set up to specific standards. The lettering has to be exactly what Apple demands. The spacing between the products, everything has to be just down to a T. And so if Microsoft wanted to do the same thing with their demos and have them shown off in a certain way, they could certainly do it, at least with some of the major retailers. I'm not saying, you know, do it with all mom and pop shops, but definitely hit up like Walmart and Best Buy. Because right now, if I go into Walmart and I go over to the video game section, they've got like Xbox hooked up there, and it's like on some 20-inch screen that looks like it came from Goodwill, and it's like made in the 90s, and it's on its last leg. Like, it looks like it could go out at any point. Like, it looks like crap, and that is not going to sell your product. The difference 4K and HDR makes has to be seen, and the only way to do that is to make sure your device is shown off in a specific way. And so the good news is, I think this is something that Microsoft is looking at. Phil tweeted the other day to somebody in a response to a question very similar to this, and he said they are looking into how they're going to display the X. So hopefully they will go big. Definitely get a screen that you can notice the 4K on, notice the HDR on, and I think that's really going to go a long ways with people in the store. Number 3, 60 frames per second, the sweet spot. Now, I can hear you now, Dragon, you can't tell developers how to develop their games. And you're right. I'm not telling them how to develop their games, but what you can do as far as Microsoft goes is you can at least offer them incentives while developing games for your system, because you've got some games out there like Tomb Raider, for instance, that are already offering up different modes based on player preference. If you want 4K in all its glory and you're okay with 30 frames per second, fine, you can choose that option. If you like silky smooth 60 frames per second gameplay, great, you can choose that option. The key word here is option. Give players options. Now, I know you can't twist developers' arms and make them give you options, but what you could say if you're Microsoft is, you know what? We have a deal in place where we cut certain percentages off from your sales. So every time a game is sold on the Xbox ecosystem, Microsoft gets a percentage of that sale. We've talked about that before. And so what they could do is say, you know what, if you're able to offer up, you know, certain options and features on our system, we could cut a smaller portion of that sales from you, which means more money in your pocket for probably very little effort, because let's face it, most games are running on PC and most games run well over 30 frames per second on PC. So what I'm saying is Microsoft could get aggressive with incentive options in order to make devs want to put those sort of features into their game. Don't tell devs how to code their games, but give them reasons to make the games better on your system. And that goes not just for 60 frames per second, but added features and textures as well. Number 4, fully embrace mouse and keyboard support. Now, I can already hear people fuming right now. No, if you want mouse and keyboard, go get a PC. We don't want that on console. You know, look, here's the thing. It's already here. Minecraft beta mouse and keyboard support just launched on the latest insider preview. This is a feature that Xbox has been talking about for some time that is coming. So it's too late to turn back time. This is something that Microsoft is going to embrace, at least to a certain extent, and I want them to go full force with it because it's gonna be great for everybody. Microsoft doesn't have to force people to play with those inputs, nor do I think they will. I believe, and they have said it themselves before, that there's going to be certain playlists. So if you only want to play with people with controllers, you can jump into that playlist. But if you don't mind playing with the mouse and keyboard, maybe you prefer it, then you can play against PC, of course, because that would open up more cross-play games that you could take advantage of. And then it would also mean that you're playing with other people using the same sort of input. But what it majorly does is open up the floodgates for more games to come to Xbox that normally wouldn't, because games are restricted by controllers at times. Yes, I know you love your controller, but some games simply don't work with it, especially the vast majority of RTS games. Look at Gamescom last week. Do you know what the biggest game was that was shown by Microsoft at Gamescom? It was the most talked about. It was the thing that got most people excited. It wasn't Forza. It wasn't Super Lucky's Tale. It was Age of Empires, a iconic game that fans have been waiting a long time for, and it was announced, but not for Xbox, not for the console. It was announced for Windows 10 for PC. And as of right now, it's not coming to console. But you add in mouse and keyboard, and not only do you get Age of Empires on Xbox, but you get a whole slew of some of the most played games that are currently exclusive to PC because they require a mouse and keyboard. So it just gives you more options. That's all it would do, and Microsoft needs to fully embrace and support this. That also means that they could, open up a whole can of other things too. That means you could then use your device more like a PC if they had those features in it, which I think is good. Number 5, Xbox Live Gold. Now, I know some of you who have been around here for a long time, you probably know what I'm about to say, but just hear me out, because I know a lot of people still disagree with me on this, which is always surprising to me. That anyway, just let me get to it. I would say Microsoft should keep Xbox Gold. Don't get rid of it. People say, Microsoft makes a ton of money on subscription services. Why would they get rid of it? I agree. Keep it. Give discounts to Gold members for games. Maybe you could even combine it with Game Pass. Keep the 4 games a month that players get that they love. Maybe you could even add more features to it, like Groove Music Pass or Movie Pass. Give cloud storage, more space, for OneDrive or games or whatever. So keep Xbox Gold subscription services. But give Xbox console owners the same benefits that you give your PC owners. The same experience that you give Windows 10 owners. And that is free multiplayer. Paying for multiplayer, paying to access part of the game that you've already bought and paid for, is the most anti-consumer thing Microsoft does. And they don't make PC players pay for it because they know nobody would. They would just be laughed at. And think of the publicity they would get if they were the only ones, if they were the only console manufacturer who didn't make you pay for online play. That would be huge. And I think that would encourage a lot of people to buy into the system. And then you could point to Sony and say, you know what? Sony says they're for the players, yet they still can't change their gamer tags. They still don't allow crossplay. They won't even allow EA access. And worst of all, they make you pay for multiplayer, something that should be free because you've already bought the game. You're not even playing on their servers. You're playing on Activision's or EA's servers or whoever else. Now, I know some of you love paying for your multiplayer because you think somehow you've talked yourself into believing you're getting something extra for it. I hate to be the one to break it to you. You're not. The fact is, most games don't use Microsoft's dedicated servers. Microsoft is using Skype for their party chat, which guess what? Is free on PC. There's literally not one feature on Xbox Live multiplayer that you don't get free on other platforms on PC, whether it's Steam, Origin, Uplay. They all give you free games. They all give you achievements, voice chat, message systems, friends list, etc. They're also all as secure as Microsoft and stay up as well as Microsoft. In fact, I read about Xbox Live having issues more than I do about a lot of these other services that I just mentioned. And it would be a lot easier for Microsoft to cut off that particular paywall for online than it would be for Sony, because it would be, I think, a lot harder for Sony because they just implemented that this generation with the PS4. And so they really rely on that income. And it would really put them in a tough spot, which is what you want to do if you're Microsoft. And I just think it would help out the Xbox brand. And not only would it be the right thing for the business, I feel, because I think that's going to give you some huge, great publicity that's very positive. It's also going to bring in a lot more people to your ecosystem, I believe. More importantly, it's just the right thing to do. Period. It's the right thing to do. You paid $60 for a game. Microsoft, why do you allow PC players to buy a game for $60 in the Windows Store and have full access to their game with no other paywalls or any other problems in the way, yet the people who bought into your gaming console, they bought a machine specifically to play games, you're going to charge them extra to just gain access to their game. It's not right. It's backwards. And so for the people who think you should have to pay extra to access the servers for Activision or EA or whoever, you know, it is that you're playing the game on, because those are the servers you're actually using. You know, if you're for that and you're pushing that and you get mad at anybody who says we shouldn't be paying for it, you might as well just bend over and ask Microsoft, how much further can you shove it in? Like, are you sure you can't go any further? Because you're only hurting yourself and you're hurting other gamers. You're hurting the brand by shilling for this because it's a backwards concept. It's anti-consumer and it needs to go. So those are the top 5 things that I think could really turn things around for Microsoft and the Xbox brand. And yes, of course, everybody's going to be saying, you didn't even talk about games. Look, that is like, I can't sit here and say, hey, we need a RPG game and we need this, and we need that. Of course, new IPs are certainly needed. But what this list did was I stuck to features that the head of Xbox could actually control right this moment. He can't sign a piece of paper that says, give me a game next week. But he can implement pretty much all of these fairly soon by getting the engineer teams to work on a lot of this. So these were things that Xbox can actually control right now. So post your thoughts down below. Do you agree or disagree? Post below and post what would you change if you were in charge of Xbox or if Phil Spencer was listening to you. That does it for me, The Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn.